Extra Time. I'm your host Martin Murphy and joined as ever by James and by Alan. Well guys, the last time I joined you, we were hoping we were going to celebrate the treble as Celtic end the season. Sadly not to be. So obviously this Extra Time episode will be diving into that. We'll be looking at some aspects of the cup final. The guys went over this with Laura earlier in the week, so we'll be touching on some other themes in that respect. We'll also have a bit of Poetry Corner, and we'll be looking at potential ideas and recruitment and so forth as well. But very importantly, we'll be looking at some of the questions that subscribers have sent in. So, guys, a couple of song lyrics as ever came my way. I was thinking about it over the weekend, and first thing was Roger Daltrey, just the boys giving it all away. But then I was kind of thinking, a bit more Meatloaf. Well, don't be sad. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. So I'm kind of still struggling between those 2 points. Obviously very disappointed, as you'll hear from my poem in but a moment. But how are you, Alan?
Yeah, very, very well. Thank you. Looking forward to moving on other topics, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about you, James?
Certainly, I've turned the page. We have a ton to do and look at this summer. So kind of refocused and trying to get myself excited towards new challenges and new paths into. So, but we've got to rehash a little bit of this stuff as part of that turning of the page. So that's what we're here to do today, to a degree.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose, my kind of takeaway from it as well, it's, I'd mentioned that it was 2002, the last time we'd lost the Scottish Cup final. So it was kind of a generation growing up without that taste of defeat. And as we saw from Callum McGregor, he was, 10 years old when he lost a cup final of any sort. So it's a new experience for many fans, many players, and what we have to hope, of course, is that we learn from that and that we strengthen and we go on. So we'll be talking about that a little bit later. But guys, I have to start off with Poetry Corner here, really. I want to get this out of the way with, because this is the first thing that came to mind to me on Saturday after the match, which says a great deal about my mindset, and it's still a little bit raw. So we'll do that, and then a little bit later, folks, stick with us, because I'm sure Alan will cheer us up a little bit with his poem. So we'll start off with this one, and then we'll start getting into the cup final. So this is actually part of a soliloquy from Macbeth. Many people will know it from exams, if nothing else. So this is from Act 5, Scene 5. Things have gone a bit badly for Macbeth. The tide has turned. There's an army at the gate, an army from the north at the gate. And he's just heard that Lady Macbeth, that's a spoiler, folks, but it's a few hundred years old, so you should know it by now. Lady Macbeth is now dead, and it goes back to Macbeth. Tomorrow, and tomorrow, and tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to day, to the last syllable of recorded time. And all our yesterdays have lighted fools the way to dusty death. Out, brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow, a poor player that struts and frets his hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. So it mentions life as a walking shadow and a poor player. I can't get Yang out of my head with this, but that's very uncharitable of me. So that's that, folks. That's out my system. I feel an element of catharsis now. I wish I'd been on with Laura and you guys earlier in the week. I think that's obviously helped a little bit. But yeah, I suppose a few takeaways from this this cup final. Historically, that's the third treble, really, Aberdeen have cost us. 69-70, the Bobby Davidson final. The first one I remember really was the League Cup final in 76-77, where Celtic absolutely pulverised Aberdeen, and somehow the ball wouldn't go in for a second goal. Where have we heard that before? And it went to extra time, and Davy Robb scored for Aberdeen, very much against a run of play. And of course, at the weekend there. So, without question, a disappointment. Guys, cheer me up a little bit. So, we're going to get into my big questions, really, to start off with. And I'll come to you first of all, Alan, because I think myself and many other fans last season were so impressed by Brendan's management. We were in a very tight league race, very tight cup final as well. We managed to negotiate that. We had poor transfer windows, not a great squad, and I felt that Brendan's qualities really came to the fore. Very expensive manager to have. We looked at all that experience. We had mentioned in extra time last week about all these cup finals that he'd got into, never lost at Hampden, also won an FA Cup against Jimmy Tilleen, who had no experience of cup finals. Yet, when looking at that game, you wouldn't have thought so. In particular, the sort of things I would like to bring to the table, really. And this isn't a hammering Brendan thing, Bennett, stretch of the imagination, because I do have a lot of admiration for him. However, I do also think that, it's brick bats and bouquets. If you take the bouquets, you need to be questioned, and there were some pretty obvious ones. And I'll put them all out there just now, and we can kind of pick through them a little bit. I suppose, first of all, no particular order. Few people have been talking about bringing Casper in. Now, there's an element of hindsight with that, of course, but I would argue that even weeks ago we were saying, well, we'd probably stick with Sinisalo. James in particular had talked about the injury and how hard it was to come back from such an injury, maybe even at his age. There didn't seem a real need to bring Casper back for this game, other than was Brendan being sentimental. You've then got things like the cup final lineup. We expressed our reservations about the St Mirren match, where it was very, very, very poor up until we made the substitutions, and we started with the same team again, and we started slowly, and it, very uninspiring. Another aspect that really got me, which very much down to the manager, the substitutions that we made. I didn't really see the need for them at the time. It was almost a by-the-book Brendan exercise, where we've hit a certain point in the game, therefore we'll bring on substitutes, rather than reading the game. But it's the last game of the season, so why would you try and manage your substitutes and their fitness and so forth? I thought that was a pretty strange decision, and also even with the actual particular substitutes that he made. Alan, if I come to you first of all, I suppose, about the substitutions, let's take it from there, and then I'll come to you, James, about the goalkeeping side of things as well. And if you want to say anything about the subs, that'd be really interesting. Alan, do you agree with me that it seemed strange in terms of the timing of the subs, in terms of the gameplay, or did you see something else there?
I mean, at the time watching the game, in all honesty, I'd have felt frustrated at how disjointed and lack of penetration, lack of chances being created, I guess. But we were watching it back and again taking the emotion out of it and just looking at it from a tactical perspective.
We hope you enjoyed this free preview from all of us here at the Huddle Breakdown. We know you have options, and we really appreciate you tuning in. To hear the rest of this episode and for much more Huddle Breakdown content, head on over to www.huddlebreakdown.com. We hope you consider subscribing. Thank you.